Sturmey-Archer 3-speed free hub assembly. This procedure is the same for both the disc brake version and for the freewheel version. Install the axle with the left side in a vise, the right side facing up. The right side has a smooth bearing surface on it. The first part is planet cage assembly. A little of the Castro CLS-00 grease. And a little on the planets and the pawls. Then the axle key, again with a little light Castro grease on it. Then the clutch sleeve, a little grease. Then the clutch spring, which slides down over the sleeve. Then the clutch, again grease on the clutch. There is a clutch spring spacer, then the clutch spring, another spacer, and then compress the clutch spring and install the Circlip in the groove on the axle. A little Castro CLS-00 grease under the clutch and on the splines of the clutch. Next item is the gear ring. Apply grease to the teeth and make sure that the pawls are not popped backwards and the springs are in place. Then the ball ring, a little grease on the ratchet of the ball ring. Compress the pawls and slide on the ball ring. You can hear it click when you turn the ball ring clockwise. Then use some Castro LMX bearing grease. And the balls. Next is the driver. The lighter Castro CLS-00 grease on the pawls. And a little bearing grease on the cone area. And then finally a little grease in the driver bearing. And deep inside there is a needle bearing. Some grease down there also. Install the driver and turn it counterclockwise until it engages with the gear ring. And the right cone. And use a 12mm to tighten the cone. There is no bearing adjustment to this cone. It simply tightens down against the shoulder on the axle. 8.5 Newton meters. Then the right serrated lock nut. Tighten the serrated lock nut to 23 Newton meters with a 14 millimeter cone wrench. Now install the internals into the hub shell. Use some grease on the threaded area and grease in the bearing area, bearing grease. And some of the Castro CLS-00 grease on the ratchet ring down inside the hub. Thread in the ball ring. Sometimes it is difficult to get the pawls to engage inside the hub shell, and you may need to rotate the axle a little bit to get everything to seat fully. Use the ball ring tool to tighten the ball ring tight. Driving action of the hub will keep this tight. Install the right side of the axle into a vise on the flats of the axle. Install the left cone. Until it touches the bearings. Then the standard lock nut. And use a 16 millimeter on the cone, a 17 millimeter on the lock nut, and adjust the bearing for free play and no play at the rim. Torque the lock nut to 8.5 Newton meters. And finally install the serrated lock nut and torque it to 8.5 Newton meters. And that is done.